This is a TRS media production. I'm your host, Michael T. This is my co-host, Matthew Jones.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? So this is going to be a podcast from the two of us, video and audio, about all things movie-related, realistically. It's our first...
And gaming.
And gaming, yeah.
TV.
It's our
Any
first
media.
episode, and we thought to tackle a very easy subject for our first episode, and that's going to be time travel in TV and movies. And we don't really know where we're going to go with it or what rabbit holes we're going to go down. So the first question is time travel a
Is
use?
it possible?
Is it possible? I ain't going to touch that because obviously time travel is not possible.
We need to get the bong for that.
Is it a useful plot device in a movie?
Oh, 100%. And it's great as long as it's not going to spawn a bunch of sequels. Because as soon as you start spawning out these time travel sequels, you start getting a little problematic. Case in point, the Terminator series.
All right, so let's
start there.
Let's start with the Terminator then.
First, can I begin? I brought it up.
Sure.
So, the first Terminator is actually my favorite. So if we're going to talk, let's just talk about the critique of it first. Would you prefer Judgment Day or do you prefer the original? Pretty loaded question.
It is a pretty loaded question. I see them both equally.
Okay, so I prefer the first one, and mostly because of the novel concept, which really brings out the whole idea about whether or not time travel can be a good plot device. In the first film, it's used sparingly. It's used as a simple motivation for the plot of the entire film. Machine sends back a Terminator to kill the mother of the unborn leader of the future resistance, and then shenanigans ensue. That's all you really need to know. You get a little bit of exposition later, but that's just for world building. As far as the complications of time travel, that's it. It's just a grandfather paradox.
The way they time travel in the Terminator franchises, though, the first movie does not set up a spawn for a sequel.
No, of course not.
Because Kyle tells her that they'd won. Skynet knew they were defeated. So in a last-ditch effort, they send back Arnie to kill John. So we're to think then at that point, in the future timeline, the rebels get in, they destroy Skynet, and they take over the time travel technology. So there's no way Skynet can send back the T-1000 at all. There's zero. And they never explain that in Terminator 2.
Well, what do they call that? It's a predetermination paradox? Is that what that's referred to as?
I don't know, but there is no way...
Or predestination paradox. It's basically where you come back and you change the timeline, well, then you couldn't come back. The timeline's changed now, so then you were never there to be able to come back to change the timeline. So
well, no, because what the first Terminator does is the act of being sent back in time is what actually happened the first time round, because that's how John Connor's created, by Kyle banging.
Yeah, it's a predetermination.
Yeah.
Grandfather paradox.
So
sorry. Yeah.
So if you look at the straight timeline from when Kyle destroys the Terminator and impregnates Sarah, she then goes as John. Judgment Day happens, John becomes the leader, John beats Skynet, sends Kyle back again, and it's a loop. But because at that point where John sends him back after Arnie, he destroys Skynet and the time travel device, there's no way Skynet could now send a T-1000 to kill John as a kid.
Okay, but so now sticking with the first film, though, this is why I feel, first of all, the first is the best of all the films, but it's also the most, the least convoluted use of the time travel trope, because all it is it's just used...
It's a vehicle.
Yeah, it's used as a way to set up the motivation for the characters of the film. You don't really need to get into depth about the way the time travel works. You just take it for granted, and Kyle drops a little bit of exposition later as part of the love story and as part of a way to tell the audience that he is going to be John's father and whatnot. So it's good storytelling.
It is, and it's a good use of time travel. But then they shoot themselves in the foot with the numerous sequels.
Okay, but now going on to Judgment Day. they lucked out with Judgment Day because James Cameron is a very good filmmaker, and when he made that sequel, he managed to catch the exact same amount of appropriate use of time travel. There's more questions, like you said. How does Skynet know to send the T-1000 back? Right? Like, why doesn't it just? You can start asking questions at this point. Why doesn't it send the T-1000 back and kill Sarah's
Grandma,
great grandfather? Right? Why doesn't it go back to the 1500s?
But unfortunately, through that though, it then devalues Terminator 1 because Kyle points out that it was a last-ditch effort. Skynet wasn't never intending to use time travel to win. It was a last-ditch effort because Skynet knew it was defeated.
I still think, though, in a vacuum, Terminator Judgment Day, because it uses the time travel trope very sparingly, just like the first film, it still works as a film.
Oh, yeah, if you take out the fact that there's nowhere the T-1000 can get back in time, the movie's excellent. So if T2 was actually T1 and T1 didn't exist and that was the first installment, it stands alone as well as that one. Mm-hmm. It's just that we don't find out that John Connor's dad is Kyle.
Well, it's funny because we were having this conversation while playing World of Warcraft last night. But once you get into Terminator 3, now you start creating this infinite regress of where does it end?
Yeah, where do they keep sending Terminators back?
Yeah.
And then you get into the abortion that was Dark Fate, when they say, actually, Skynet sent a lot of different Terminators back, and they were biding their time until one succeeded. I think that's what Dark Fate says.
Well, and Genesis is also...
you
meant Genesis, yeah.
No, I meant Dark Fate.
You just completely forgot about Genesis.
Genesis is just...
I don't think anyone remembers Genesis.
No, I didn't forget about it. I chose to
I suppressed it.
Yeah. So in Dark Fate, the reason why John gets killed is it turns out that Skynet actually sent back multiple Arnie's.
Oh, I remember now. Yeah.
And he turns up at the beach and kills him.
Okay, yeah, with the really side point, really fantastic, well done de-aging CGI.
Yeah. But what questions that answers is now, how many did he send back? And if they could send that many back, why didn't they just send a legion of skinless Terminators and take out the human race as a whole back then? Why wait for Judgment Day? If you've got time travel...
And this is the problem with time travel. If you start utilizing it as the main crux of a story, it becomes...
The wheels fall off.
Exactly. And that's why Terminator Salvation's a good film, because it's not a time travel film anymore.
Terminator Salvation is in my top 3 of Terminator movies. It gets a bad rap, but...
It's a war movie. It's a futuristic war movie. It's not a time travel film. When
we watched the Terminator and Terminator 2 and had the flashbacks to Kyle fighting with lasers against the Terminators, everybody said, that's the movie. That's another movie I want to see. I want to see the Resistance versus Skynet. And we got it, and then people bitched it out for some reason. Now, does it have its flaws? 100%. The stupid use of Marcus. There was no need for Marcus. If you take Marcus out of the film... And it is a story about John Connor fighting Skynet.
What's that actor's name again? Sam Worthington?
Sam Worthington, yeah.
It's because he was the next big thing
Avatar,
at the time.
Yeah.
So they were like, we need to get Sam Worthington into this film
somehow. Well, he could have played John Connor.
Yeah.
So if you wanted Sam Worthington...
Well, he technically was, if you think about it, because John Connor in the original script died. And what was going to happen was they were going to graft his body onto the Terminator's body.
That's so bad.
Good job.
So in the Terminator 2, it's used, time travel used very, very sparingly, and you get 2 good movies. They use it a lot more in sequels, and the wheels fall off. But then...
Hold on. Because don't segue, because I have a great segue. Because
I'm going to pivot.
We were talking about Genesis.
Yeah.
Or at least I was.
No, I don't.
But the thing is, Genesis at least tries something different, and what does it do? It hops on the fad that's obviously started coming around at the time, that time travel can create multiple universes.
Yeah.
Things had changed and whatnot. And that helps me segue into the concept of time travel that is now being predominantly used in pretty much every film in the last 10 years, including Star Trek 2009, the reboot. with the Kelvin timeline, and what else? Endgame.
See, I don't see 2009 Star Trek as a reboot because it's just a Star Trek story told in a different
it's a soft
universe.
reboot. It's a soft reboot.
Yeah, it's told in a different universe, which is why people have got to not get so head up about it that it's not like original Star Wars. It's in a different universe.
Now, the problem, and this is getting a little off topic, but the problem with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies is that it's not real Star Trek. Star Trek is about the cerebral
Star Trek.
It's about the cerebral aspect of humanity going out into space. It's not supposed to be an action romp, which is what 2009 is. It's a very good one.
Why can't it be both?
Well, it can.
We got
the Wrath of Khan.
We have the cerebral Star Trek. We've had that in TNG and TOS. We've now had comedy Star Trek in Lower Decks, which is excellent. Why can't Star Trek be told as an action movie? There's no reason.
We love Star Trek.
Yeah. There's no reason, and all these people who keep hashtagging not my Star Trek, fine, great, don't fucking watch it.
What some people say, hashtag not my Star Trek. I knew people were outraged about certain things, but I didn't know there was a hashtag.
But that's what I'm saying. Though. If you don't like it, don't watch it.
Hold on a second. Are we PG-13?
No, I just said fuck about 3 times.
Okay. So.
I'm not a big fan of Voyager. I've watched the entire series, but is it one of the ones that I go back and watch frequently? No.
Yeah, and pirouetting back onto the topic, Voyager is the main Star Trek, the main culprit in Star Trek for abusing time travel.
Yeah, and they never abuse it right.
Well, the finale of Star Trek Voyager is ridiculous. The whole Endgame.
Yeah.
It's interesting that is such a Kalamazoo term when it comes to bloody time travel media. Let me just brush on Endgame real quick. What I don't like about the whole Endgame approach is it completely nullifies everything that Voyager went through. Because the future Janeway, she decides, as judge, jury, and executioner of time, that she can't accept the way things happen. So I'm going to go back and now essentially eradicate all of the progress that took place over the last 25 years. All of these newborn people, all of these people who fell in love, all of these stories that happened. But she took it upon herself to change that just because she was not happy with the way things turned out.
But that's if you only see time travel as a singular linear line. So
that's how Voyager plays with it.
So all those
Janeway is essentially God.
Yeah, so what old Janeway does is she leaves the future, and her timeline continues with, with Seven dead and Chakotay not being able to deal with it, and she comes back in time and helps Voyager get back early, and in doing so she creates another timeline where Voyager gets back early and Seven doesn't die, and Chakotay gets to bang her every night, which is really lucky. So...
Well, and this is one of the things that's making a lot of Star Trek fans... kind of happy with the current state of affairs, despite a lot of the naysayers and the hashtag not my Star Trek crowd. People are saying, well, the multiverse exists in Star Trek, and it's existed since TNG. There's even that episode where Worf, I think it is going through different parallel dimensions.
Well, we know it exists with Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yep. No, but but that's linear as Yesterday's Enterprise.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, because what happens is the Enterprise C comes into the future.
Yeah.
Where in the regular timeline it had gone missing and was destroyed. I think Khitomer it was a war between the Romulans and the Klingons, and it was destroyed, and its destruction led to an armistice between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. It coming into the future somehow changed that and caused the Klingon Empire to go to war with the Federation. That's now the timeline's changed, and even Guinan. She remembers the original timeline, and when they realize they have to send the Enterprise C back in time to get destroyed to fix the timeline. It's a Donnie Darko situation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying there is with the Enterprise C coming through that rift, that now creates a timeline of where the TNG guys have really cool uniforms, and that timeline continues.
It doesn't.
No.
It gets fixed. It's linear.
But
go back and watch Yesterday's Enterprise.
I've watched it. I know what happens. But what happens is the framing of the episode is framed in our timeline. The camera then jumps to a different universe where we're at war with the Klingons. We don't actually change anything. We move with the Enterprise C into that universe. They then fix the Enterprise C and send it back. And as as the Enterprise C gets sent back, we then go back into our timeline with the original TNG crew.
So why does Guinan, though, why can she remember what happened in the alternate timeline?
Because the way I see that is, it's not the fact that she can, because she only has a feeling. What she's got is the feeling of that Enterprise C is out of place in its universe. That's the trigger. The Enterprise C has come from the timeline.
That's a semantic.
With TNG. She's
timeline. She's aware of the timeline.
Yeah. So that's how I see that one. But then you've also got Star Trek plays liberally with time travel altogether. We'll come on to Star Trek time travel in a different case. But if you want to talk about non-linear multiverse, you've got to think that Back to the Future has to have it. Otherwise, Back to the Future goes from being a really nice family film to a really, really dark film.
Well, let's start though. Let's delve into Back to the Future on a critical basis. So, Back to the Future is a cultural phenomenon.
It's a horrible movie.
No, the first one's not.
No, I don't mean like it's bad to watch. I mean
the morals.
It's actually a horrible movie.
Yeah, it's like, look, this guy was totally like a peeping Tom. That's love for you.
Before we touch about the time travel thing, I'm going to touch on a few things which are horrible in this movie that people don't know. And once I say these, it will forever change the way you watch the movie.
I know what you're going to talk about.
So the first point is Doc Brown is a failed scientist who's about to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And he wants to take Marty with him.
No, he already has.
So, and I'll explain this. In the scene in the parking lot where he's demonstrating the DeLorean time machine,
he puts him in.
He
puts him in the pathway of it.
He drives the car directly at him and Marty, and when Marty looks to move away, he looks at him and gives him a funny look. So Marty moves back, and then the time machine hits 88 miles per hour, and we see some serious shit. Now, that's all well and good, but think about it. Think about his reaction. He's over the moon that it's worked. Now flip forward.
That's an allegory for depression.
Yeah. So now flip forward to when Marty meets him in 1955. And he says none of his inventions ever work. Mm-hmm. Now flip back to the reaction of his invention actually working. It makes sense. So Doc drove this car at the two of them, thinking it was not going to work and they were both going to get splattered at 88 miles an hour.
Yeah, but I mean, this is where theory crafting becomes a little bit of an issue.
Not to mention how we got in the DeLorean.
But just let me... Yeah, well, that's
a
whole kind of worms of its own.
This is what Doc did.
He got in and drove it.
He gets in the DeLorean, drives up, closes the door, presses his smoke machine just for a dramatic reveal. So that's the first point.
It's funny how you don't notice these things though when you watch it as a kid.
So that's the first thing that makes it dark. The second thing
Hold on, no, I got something to say about. I got something to say about that though, because there's a problem with that. There's a problem with theory crafting in general. It's a topic that we really want to delve into at one point, but that theory falls apart when you start asking questions. Why did he get plutonium? Why did he piss off the Libyans? Why does he bother with any of that? Why does he put Einstein in the car with a clock? Why is he doing any of that if he just wants to commit suicide?
Because he wants... We've already seen his flair for dramatic by driving into the thing and shutting the door and then backing back out.
But what about also running the risk that he doesn't actually commit suicide, but they just severely maim each other?
He's mental. He doesn't care. He is Rick.
Well, you can go on to the dark thing, but I wanted to point out real quick because another theory, an idea, concept is it's not that he's trying to kill Marty. It's that he already did kill Marty. And he keeps killing Marty in different timelines, and he's constantly going from timeline to timeline.
When did we start talking about Rick and Morty?
well, Rick and Morty is inspired by
it. So hang on. So that's the first dark thing. The second dark thing you've just touched on. The fact that George McFly is a peeping Tom that basically gets hit with a car and she falls in love with him.
Yeah, it's the moral of the story, kids. Just spy on your love interest and become a stalker.
So that doesn't... But so first off, George McFly is not a nice character. Secondly, Marty saves him and gets hit with a car. They don't take Marty to hospital. They put him in Lorraine's bed. What?
The 1950s.
You just hit a kid with your car.
You don't know what the 1950s were like.
Now we're on to the grandfather paradox, and she starts hitting on her son and all that kind of shit. That's more done for laughs rather than anything moral, because from Lorraine's point of view, he's a cute Calvin Klein kid that her dad just brought in. She has no fucking idea. Now we come to another dark point when they come up with the master plan to get his mum and dad back together again.
Oh God, yeah, the rape scene.
Well, hang on. Marty says he doesn't know whether he can. I think it's something like he says, "I don't know whether I can go through with it." And Doc literally says, "You don't have to do it all. Just knock her around a bit." Again,
Shenanigans ensues. It's okay because it's funny.
Proving that Doc is not a nice guy. So that's the plan. They start making out. Marty obviously gets jumped by Biff. Biff's not a nice character. He tries to rape Lorraine. George shows up, saves the day. It's all well and good. They go dance and Johnny be good.
Talk about causation paradox. So I'm sorry. This is why I chose this topic, because we're going to segue. But I got to quickly brush on this. So Chuck Berry, who wrote Johnny Be Good? Who invented that brand of rock and roll? Because was Chuck Berry going to do it anyway?
No.
So
he's covering Marvin.
But Marty didn't write it.
So how did Marty know about it?
So how did Marty know about it unless Chuck Berry wrote about it?
Another aspect that's dark.
Oh, my brain's hurting already.
Is the only reason George has the courage to stand up to Biff is because he's slightly drunk.
Yeah, from the punch.
And you only see that in the second movie when Biff spikes a punch. But if you watch carefully in the first movie, before George checks his watch, he's drinking the punch. So he's got a bit of a Dutch courage in him. But then now we come to another dark, probably the darkest point of the movie, is they fall in love. It's all good. Marty gets in the car, hits 80 miles an hour, and goes back to the future. Doc obviously has read the letter, saved his life. So this kind of puts out the fact that you could use this as a reason for why Doc was not trying to commit suicide, because he already knows the car works, because he's already met Marty in 1955. And that's why he builds it out of a DeLorean, because he's already seen the DeLorean in 1955, if you're thinking of a linear timeline. But this is the...
There's still a causality problem there, though.
This is the darkest point, when Marty wakes up in the morning and his family's completely changed. So in effect, two things have happened. Marty McFly has killed his family. His mum, his dad, his brother and his sister that he's grown up with since a kid. He's murdered them.
How?
Because they don't exist. So the four people that he's loved and grown up with, the alcoholic mum...
No, but you argue, though, that this is multiverse, though, right?
No, I'm saying if this is a linear timeline. Those four people now no longer have ever existed.
But it also begs the question, what happened to the Marty, though?
That grew up with him. He's killed him as well.
Oh, yeah, he puts him into the DeLorean to go into the future, but really what happens is the DeLorean just explodes.
He's killed it. He's killed it. So he's killed himself, and he's killed his family, and he's basically taken over. He's body snatched.
See, I like that, though. That's tidy. That's neat. That's my favourite way of telling
No, it's dark and horrible.
No, but it's tidy, though, as far as time travel's concerned.
So let's put it this way. You go to bed tonight, you wake up tomorrow morning, and me, Daniel, Dad, Rita, and Natasha are all completely different people that you've never met before. And everybody that we've grown up, we're all dead. That's fucked.
That's what it is.
And now we come on to the last dark point. George McFly hires the would-be rapist of his wife to polish his cars.
What a character.
Back to the Future is a fucked up, messed up movie, man.
Yeah, but I mean, you put it on its own and judge it at face value. it's all right.
Up. We won't talk about the sequels because I think the sequels are stupid.
No, okay, just real quickly though, the sequels affect the whole time travel conversation because the sequels start to create this idea of the
he goes through the tangent timeline.
Whereas in the first film, again, just like with Terminator, the whole time travel thing, if you think about it,
just to get Marty to 1955.
Yeah, exactly. Once he's in 1955, shenanigans ensue, and that's the story.
And that's the thing that 2 helps out with the multi-universe. So if you could think about it, the Marty McFly that has a nice family now, his family are not dead. They're just in a different multiverse with a different Marty that they don't even know.
Yeah.
So yeah, Back to the Future gets messy with it.
Let's go away from convention because there's a couple of films out there that use time travel as a plot device, but they're a little unconventional, and one of them is one of your favorite time travel movies of all time, right? Millennium.
Yes.
Now, can you? Because it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Can you give us a summary of how time travel is used in that?
Time travel is the main focus of Millennium, and it's realistically, if we had time travel, the way you would have to use it. So think about the premise is in the future, the human race is dying. We've polluted the air. We can't reproduce anymore. So what the people from the future do is they go back in time just before aeroplanes are about to crash. And they take because obviously they have all this information now. They know that in, let's say, I can't remember the dates, but let's pick a date. Perfect example. They go back to September 11th, 2001. And what they do is they pull the planes out of that timeline just before they hit the World Trade Center. And they take everybody off these planes. Yeah, they take everybody off these planes and bring them to the future, and they put clone dead bodies on the planes. So these people were going to die anyway, and that's what...
What about the terrorists? Bad example, if you ask me.
Well, no, but because that's I couldn't remember which plane crashes they used, but that's what they do. They pick plane crashes, and they bring them into their timeline, and they take the people who were going to die. And because they have this information,
if the Malaysia airline
if
crash.
The people survive the crash, they leave them on board, and that's what sets it up. They take they stun everybody. So what they do is they go on board the airplane and pose as flight attendants, and they knock everybody out. I don't mean like them run down the aisle and punch them in the face. They give them a drink and everybody's unconscious. So
that would be pretty funny.
So they then take the people into the future who are virile, healthy, to repopulate the planet is basically what they do. That's why they're doing it, to try and save the human race. And by doing it that way, they don't affect the timeline, because they go back in time and they take people who are going to be dead anyway and bring them forward. And they replace them with dead clones with no consciousness or anything. So when you sift through the wreckage, the people who died, you find their dead bodies. But their actual real bodies are now in the future trying to repopulate the human race. But where it all goes wrong is they do one mission, and it goes a bit sideways. And a young boy sees them. And this is where the film's great, because it bounces backwards and forwards through time, and it can get quite confusing.
Well, yeah, the main character recognizes her, but she is a past version of herself.
Yeah, she's not met him yet.
She hasn't met him, but he's met her, though.
Yeah.
He's met a future version of her.
So when he meets her for the first time, she's already met him, is what it is. No. Yes. No. No, when she's
getting confusing.
So when she meets him for the first time, she's already met him, and she has to go back in time to have that meeting. When he meets her for the first time, she doesn't recognize him because the timelines are all different. But the way the movie then progresses is they have a cock up, and a kid recognizes him, and then he then spends his life as he grows up as an adult to try and find these time travelers. That's his whole thing, because he's seen them. Because he was on a plane crash as a kid, but he was one of the survivors. And what happens is one of them ends up dropping one of their weapons, and it all goes around. The adult version of this kid finds the weapon, and to out the time travelers, he accidentally ends up killing himself.
I can't find the film on IMDb.
It's brilliant. It's really hard to find. I don't think there's many streaming services for it. And what their overall plan is once they get enough humans, they're going to send them forward in time.
Chris Christopherson.
Yes. They're going to move them forward in time and, as I say, repopulate the species. But they actually use time travel really, really well.
Well, because it's tidy. Again, that's the word I'm going to use to describe what I think is good use of time travel as a plot device, is if there's very few questions.
Well, yeah, the whole plan is we can't go back and just grab people because it would affect the time. Yeah,
have it all tied up in a nice knot.
It would affect the timeline. So how do we get healthy humans from the past into the future? Well, we take them just before we die, which brings me on to another segue.
No, hold on, before you hit that segue, you've been leading this podcast quite a bit, so I got to interject from time to time. How do they know when people are going to die?
Because they know which planes are about to crash.
Right. Okay. This is where causality might become an issue again, though. Because if they knew and they've already crashed and died, how can they go back in time to prevent that from happening?
They don't prevent it. So what they do is, let's say, as I said, just before the planes hit the World Trade Center, that what they do is they bring the back...
Yeah, no, I understand that, but
So no, no, so they're not preventing it.
It's a causality paradox again.
No,
Because if those people,
those people still die.
it's a case of them doing something before they've already done it. Because how could they have done that before without how could they have gone back and put fake bodies and saved the people before knowing that they were going to do that, before knowing those people were going to die?
Well, they don't. They come from the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, it'd be like, I say, they come from the future, and what they do is they pull the back of the plane. They pull the plane into the future.
I know. I remember that visual.
And then they take everybody off, put everybody on, and then they send it back to crash and kill everybody. So as far as the past is concerned, those people still died.
They're still changing the timeline, though.
Whose timeline?
The timeline.
Okay, are they changing the timeline from their point of view?
Right, so let me paint this picture for you. Okay, so the plane crashes, right, and no one saves them. That's just how it happens.
Those people still die.
150 years in the future, though, these time people are like, well, this happened, so let's go back in time, put fake bodies on this plane, and take these people
and bring them back to the future.
Bring them back to the future. So now they've changed the timeline to where now that's what happens, and those people didn't die. Those people are just now in the future.
But this is just it, though. Maybe that's what happened all the time. That always happened.
Again, another causality.
But it's not a causality loop that causes
a causality
loop. It's not a causality loop that causes a problem through time travel. Where you're like, well,
it's tidy. Yeah, it's pretty neat. You don't need to think too much about it. It doesn't open up very many questions. I struggled to find a problem.
Now I'm going to come to a film that uses that premise just as a launch pad for an action movie. So it's not really a time travel movie, but I'm just going to throw in this. It's my guilty pleasure, and that's Free Jack.
Oh, God.
Fucking love that movie.
Yeah.
And they just use that same premise that they used in Millennium, but rather than it be the crux of the entire movie, they literally do it once to bring Alex Furlong, because he dies in his crash. The split second before he dies, they bring him into the future to put Anthony Hopkins' brain in his body, and then shenanigans ensue. But again, that's a good use of time travel.
No, and also again, the idea though of what the Free Jack is someone who escapes from that scenario.
Yeah, and he has no rights because he's not supposed to be in the future, so he's basically nobody.
God, I haven't seen that film in a long time.
Now,
all I remember is Mick Jagger's weird costume.
Oh, Mick Jagger's badass in that movie. Yeah. It's awesome. I love that movie. But now I want to come on.
Can I bring something up?
Well, I'm gonna bring up a time travel movie that I want you to talk about because you know you really like it, and I like it, and I love it because it's basically the self-fulfilling prophecy version. Fulfilling prophecy of time travel, and that's 12 Monkeys, which is one of the best time travel movies out there.
Yeah, but there's an interesting caveat, though, to that film, and this is from Terry Gilliam himself. Is it really happening?
Or is it all just
James Cole just losing his mind? But because that movie, now you can say yes, definitively it is time travel, but that movie is very much so about consciousness and experience and whether or not it's the Matrix, basically. How would you know if you're delusional? How would you know that your delusions aren't real? That's kind of the main theme of that film, really.
Yeah, and it takes a good premise though on it though, and you can watch it that way, but you can also watch it as a straight out time travel movie, and it be a very ingenious time travel movie because they keep fucking up where they're sending him, and they believe that is a mistake, but it's actually preordained that he has to be at those points in time for the actions of the film to play out, where he gets shot in the airport at the end.
Carl's back, by the way.
All right, see ya.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah, so the movie, again, bounces backwards, forwards in time and doesn't tell it from a linear time perspective because you're getting it told. I like time travel movies like that, where you're getting it told from the perspective of the time traveler, not the person who's...
The thing I always liked about 12 Monkeys' take on time travel is how, unreliable it is.
Well, yeah, and the fact that you have to wear a giant plastic rubber suit.
But it inherently makes you disorientated. One of the side effects of using the time displacement device, I think that's what they call it, is you become disorientated.
Yeah, well, he gets to the point where he believes he's a nut job. And that he hasn't been traveling through time.
That's a lot to do with... that's basically, again, the whole caveat of the idea of that we're talking about psychology and psychosis. Is like, does he... is he losing his mind and whatnot? But
Yeah.
but anyway, but the time machine itself is incredibly unreliable because the first time it sends him back, he's supposed to be going to 1996, but it sends him back to 1990.
Yeah, and he
And
also
that's
got sent back to this to the
to
World War Two.
World War
where he
One.
gets, was it one where he gets a bullet in
Pretty
his
sure
leg?
it's World War One. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's preordained. He has to go there to get that bullet, otherwise she will never believe that he's a time traveler.
Yeah.
What other good time travel movies do we want to talk about?
Timecop.
No, I said good time travel movies.
Do you know I've never actually seen Timecop.
It's terrible.
What's it about?
It's about a cop
Who travels
who
through time.
travels through time. No, basically, time travel's a thing,
I just want to keep talking about Star Trek.
and people abuse time travel to go back and make themselves rich. So basically, the Time Cop Bureau is brought in to stop that. So the Time Cops go back and catch the guys and imprison them.
So it's schlock.
It is schlock. It as I say, it'd be like
Nothing makes sense in that film.
it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's the fact that the premise is stupid, because if you went back in time, because again they're not running multiple timelines, they're running it as a linear timeline. So if you go back in time and tell yourself to put $1 million on France to win the World Cup in 1998, you then win that bet and get in $20 million back in 98. You're not the same person you are in the future to go back and tell yourself.
Predetermination paradox.
Yeah,
Again.
so it doesn't even try to answer that. It's schlock.
I'm pretty sure it's a predetermination paradox. I got to look up my term here.
Yeah, but while you're
Keep going with
looking
Mike.
up that, then let's go back to what we started with: Star Trek and time travel.
Well, I want to talk about Star Trek: The Voyage Home. Because Star Trek: The Voyage
Well,
Home kind of ties into
pick-
the Millennium idea, except instead of going back and saving people, we're going back and saving whales.
Pick your favorite time travel aspects and then talk about them, and I'll do mine.
From Star Trek?
Yeah, because that's where we've got to now.
Well,
Like the Voyage Home is not a very good movie.
Time's Arrow is pretty cool.
That's the one with Samuel Clemens.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Go.
Because it's again kind of another one of those paradoxes where they find Data's head in the ground, right?
Yeah.
But that serves as the mystery that leads them ultimately to determining how to get back in time so that Data can leave his
head.
his head in the past.
It's like Bender being found in the desert.
Exactly, except that's much more clever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad episode. I think my favorite, two favorite time travel episodes. One is very unconventional, and then one is very conventional, and one of the best Star Trek. Both of these are best Star Trek episodes.
Predestination paradox.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the first one I want to talk about is All Good Things. As a time travel episode, time travel is not necessarily used to get the plot going, but we bounce through time from Picard's point of view, and the way that they bounce him through time, and that it turns out that he is the linchpin, not what's going on, not that anomaly that he's been searching. It's him, is why I like it.
Well, it's also it kind of describes time in a different sense too. It's as Q puts it, time isn't linear in this scenario. Time is the whole universe is one big moment of time, and this problem is happening in the future, the present, and the past. It's happening at all moments throughout time, and it's happening at different intensities, more intense in the future, less intense in the past.
Yeah. And then there's my
Oh no, sorry. Less intense in the past, more intense in the future.
Not other way around.
No, it isn't, because he goes back to the primordial ooze, and it's covering the
so it's
entire
more
sky.
intense in the past.
Yeah.
And not intense in the future. That's why his old self gets to the coordinates with Beverly.
And they think he's crazy.
And think he's a nut job.
Yeah.
And then there's my favourite time travel episode, Trials and Tribulations. That is just the best.
Yeah, but nothing about that episode makes sense. That episode is straight up a love letter to the original series.
Why? Not what makes sense about it?
Well, first of all, the time police that show up, like, where did they come from all of a sudden?
Well, the temporal time directive.
No, but the temporal
Brannigan
codes,
works for him.
That episode is tongue-in-cheek. It's meant to be. It doesn't pretend not to be.
But they do very well at what you would have to do if you went back in
the
time
whole
to not
idea of
fuck with the timeline.
Yeah, and the Klingons, like, it's... We do not speak of it.
It's a long story.
No, he says we do not speak of it.
But
it's just great.
It's brilliant, especially with how they cut in the old footage, and when they get into the bar fight, the person he picks to have a word with is the most important man in Federation history, Miles O'Brien.
And interesting little bit of trivia. Did you know that the guy who plays the Klingon that they're after
is the same guy?
Is the same guy.
Yeah, he's just older.
What's his name?
But like when Kirk opens up the grain bins and they're looking for the bomb, and it's actually Cisco and Dax
just throwing them
throwing
out.
the tribbles out that are hitting him. It's brilliant. It's such a good episode.
Yeah, it's again an example of using time travel perfectly. The time travel doesn't need to be explained. It just serves as motivation for the plot.
Now, I want to bring on a point of the use of time travel, which I hate in movies, and we'll use a Star Trek episode from the series I don't really enjoy, Voyager. Voyager has a very good, I think it's a two-parter called The Year of Hell. Basically an homage to Battlestar Galactica written by Ronald D. Moore, because that's what he's planned for Voyager.
He wanted Voyager to be
get worse and beat up as they go.
A continuous story.
But now we come to the point which I hate about time travel, certain movies that use time travel. You have everything happen in that, and then through one little change in the timeline, it just undoes everything that just happened and everything's back to normal. I hate that. That is lazy writing, using time travel as a way to reset everything. And it happens in lots of different films. I hate it.
Yeah, but in The Year of Hell, it makes sense.
Well, yeah, because they...
Oh, no, it doesn't,
no,
actually.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Their technobabble explanation for it is that Praxis' ship is...
in a temporal bubble. And
it's tethered. It's tethered to the point so that ship's timeline is the timeline.
Yeah.
And everything happening outside of that ship is where all the changes go. So you destroy that ship, all of a sudden,
it just...
space magic. Now
it's just shit.
Everything's reset to a time where Prax is no longer affecting the timeline. But if you think about it that way, then if Prax wasn't there to affect the timeline in the first place, then Voyager would still be Voyager.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The actual, I'm not going to use the word science, but the thought behind it, I don't mind. But I hate shows like that because it's just a lazy. There's no payoff for the 2 hours that I just spent watching of Voyager get beat to shit, because then it's just everything's back to normal. I don't like the use of time travel to make everything back to normal. I like time travel.
Except you like Avengers Endgame.
But Avengers Endgame, nothing is back to normal with that. They're still 5 years in the future with the...
Yeah, I guess. But the snap literally brings everyone back to life.
But that's not time travel. That's
I know,
the snap.
I know, but still...
That's the power of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Without time travel, they wouldn't have been able to make it happen, though.
No, and... What's it called?
The
Hulk's explanation of time travel is the most confusing in any movie.
Well, that movie contradicts itself at every point. But the only thing that I didn't mind was the what's her name? The magician sorcerer lady.
Tilda Swinton, Sorcerer Supreme.
The sorcerer supreme. Yeah, I like her explanation.
Yeah, her explanation is way better than the Hulk's.
Well, because it kind of like, it builds upon the whole multiverse concept. It's like, okay, you take a stone out of the universe, you create a tangent universe. If you bring the stone back to the point where you took it, that tangent universe is corrected. Which that segues me onto something interesting. That segues me into a movie that is much loved. It's a cult classic, but it's a weird film.
Before you go there, I think they're going to explore that more in the next Doctor Strange movie, the Multiverse of Madness.
You get into theory crafting there, and you know what we think of theory crafting in this podcast.
Well, I tell you what, if a movie called The Multiverse of Madness has no multiverses in it, I'll be really pissed. I won't be that pissed as long as there's some madness.
It's a multiverse, not multiverse.
So.
But that concept is very, very similar and very, very close to the idea behind the story of Donnie Darko, which a lot of people don't consider that to be a time travel film.
It's 100% a time travel movie.
It's all about time travel, and it's also we'd have to spend an entire hour doing a podcast alone on that film to really get into what makes sense about it. But I do really like the idea that the universe is kind of this living, breathing, sentient thing that when there's a paradox, it causes a glitch. And it causes the timeline to fracture. And if that timeline isn't fixed by the cause of that fracture,
Yeah, so
then the
basically
universe
Donnie.
then the universe will cease to exist.
Yeah.
I love that because to me that changes the game on the time travel concept, because the movie isn't really about time travel as a motivation for the story. It's conceptual. It's what if this is
Yeah.
how time works. It's a what if about time, and I really appreciate that.
You got me thinking about another Jake Gyllenhaal time travel movie, which is an exceptional movie up until
I
the
know what you're
last 3 minutes.
Yeah, source
So
code.
Source Code is excellent, and especially the way I forgot the name of the guy. The doctor explains it, that you aren't actually going back in time; you're just sending your consciousness to find out information, all that. But then
Which kind of doesn't make sense.
but then it ruins it at the end. That movie should have ended with his voiceover where they freeze frame and everybody on the train is happy and all that kind of stuff. But then it unpauses and he now is living in the body of the character on the train, which could work at the point of saying that you're actually now creating multiverses, because I think the character's called Sean Ventress. That Sean Ventress was supposed to have died on that train at that day, at that time. But he stops the bombing on the train. So from that point on, there was no future for anyone on that. So it's now being created. And that's what I think he kind of says. But I just think it's lazy. I think it'd have been better if it had stopped at the freeze frame.
See, I don't even consider it though a time travel film personally, because I'm not sure if this is what was the intention, but this is my personal interpretation of what happens. There isn't actually any time travel going on. There is a simulation. There's a simulation based on data points and data,
which is what it's supposed to be until the ending.
And all that's happening is his consciousness is continuing the simulation on. So that's not actually it's not real.
But that's not how the movie ends though. The movie ends. He sends an email to the Air Force chick that's been helping him out with his. There was a king of clubs and all that, and that they've created something completely different.
But then and that's kind of like that's the trippy twist, the simulation theory thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, to me, I don't think there's.
That's to say,
It's again kind of like this is why you segued from Donnie Darko. It's kind of again more of a conceptual thing. So it's like, what if time worked this way?
Yeah.
It's time travel starts out as. Time travel starts out as the motivation for the plot, but it ends up becoming this
something else.
Let's walk away from this and get you really thinking, I wonder what if time did work that way.
So let's touch base on the time travel.
I still want to talk about whales.
We can get back to whales.
Admiral, there'd be whales here.
I just want to touch base on, because I like Endgame. But
you like Endgame because it's got like all the heroes,
Fangasm, man, yeah,
assembling and fighting
there
a
are
big
parts
giant CGI mess
with the time travel. I don't understand, and again, this could have been fixed very easily by a different form. That when old Cap is sat on the bench, how did he get from his timeline to this universe?
You mean Joe Biden?
Yeah, it doesn't look a lot like Joe Biden. But how did he get from that? Because his timeline is obviously a different multiverse now.
He just did.
But they could have fixed it.
Shut up, that's how.
They could have fixed it so much easier if there'd have been a pause and said, oh no, he's coming back inbound. And when he pops back up on the thing, he's in his outfit that he was, but he's an old dude.
Hey, look, if anybody's made it this far, you tell us what your theory is on that. Because I just think you're supposed to just like shut up and
it's just like
eat it.
I think they got so tired, they were like 3 hours into the movie, they're like, oh fucking, let's just finish this. Cap, just go sit on that bench.
Marvel movies are just indulgence food. It's chocolate cake.
Is there any other time travel in Marvel movies? You got the bit with Dormammu where he keeps resetting time, which is a good use of time. He's got him in an endless loop to stop him destroying the world, but I don't think there's any other time travel.
Well, I'd like to maybe end the discussion with something a little bit more cerebral and a little bit more thoughtful. You might not even have thought of this as a time travel movie, but again, something you and I were talking about while we were playing World of Warcraft last night. But Interstellar. Because Interstellar takes an incredibly astute scientific approach to the way that time works. It broaches on relativity. Time dilation, all that sort of stuff. So we've got the time travel going on when they go on the planet that's within the gravity well of the black hole.
Yeah.
So when they're down on they're down on that planet, like only a couple of hours pass, but like 17 years I think passes. But the time travel part to me that I find is really interesting, and then also again boils down to this whole conceptual idea: what if time works this way? Is when he's inside the Tesseract at the end, because basically what the film's trying to tell us there is that time is just
A dimension.
It's just another spit. No, but it's not just a dimension. It's not just a dimension of time as we understand it in real life, but it's actually a spatial dimension.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. Is at the moment we live in 4 dimensions: X, Y, Z, and time.
Yeah.
They're saying that the beings that create the Tesseract can see time like we can see up, down,
yeah,
left,
they
or
can see
right,
time as a spatial dimension,
and that it's not linear. And I like that. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the depiction was shit." Well, how do you depict something that we can't conceive?
Yeah.
I thought the depiction was very good, and it tied into the link that Brand says that love can transcend time, and the fact that
oh no, that's my least favorite part of the movie.
I don't, because it proves to the point that
schmaltzy.
But there's got to be schmaltzy when you got McConaughey in a movie. That his
Don't let me leave, Murph.
When he goes back, when he's in the Tesseract, he's at a point where he knows his daughter who he loves. He's at that point in the bedroom, the creepy ghost in the bedroom.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
So that's how the fifth dimension beings choose to show it to him. This is how you can see time. You get to be in your daughter's bedroom for eternity. So,
well, you just made that creepy for no reason. Way to ruin like fatherly love.
The shittiest thing I find about it though is he basically loses his entire family, which nobody thinks of about the movie, because he goes on his merry trip, and his family grow up without him.
Oh, we can't talk about it. I'll break down here, even thinking about that scene.
And when he goes back to see his daughter, she's old in the bed, and she says, "I've got my family here, but there's somebody out there that could use your help."
Can you imagine? He gets there and he's like, "Oh, I'm here. We're gonna start the population," and she's like, "Oh, no."
Wolf Edmonds survived.
Oh no, she's just straight up just like, "Sorry, I'm just not in. I just don't look at you that way."
Yeah.
Thanks, though.
Well,
I'm actually growing myself a perfect husband.
Yeah, but that's not why she sends him back. She sends him back because
for moral support,
for help, yeah. And it is a really good way of ending it. And stay tuned for Interstellar 2. No, if Nolan...
The Quest for More Money.
Yeah, The Quest for More Money. Oh, man, that's a movie I want to see. No, and then I'm just going to finish on the silliest use of time travel ever in a movie. But it's epic, it's funny, and it's awesome. And that's the time travel sequence in Ice Pirates.
Yeah, but it's nonsensical and it's just supposed to be funny.
It's awesome, especially at the end where they're about to die and their son breaks in and it's just Kurt Ulrich playing his son. Hey, Dad, I'm here. But it's so funny because the time speeds as they're chasing him. They speed up and then they slow down. And they speed. It's such a good use of.
We need to do an actual podcast reaction to that film.
Well, but we know what's going to happen.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm like we'll watch it, get it fresh in our heads, and we'll do a review for people.
Ice Pirates, yeah. It's not a movie many people will have seen.
Yeah. But anyway, that was a pointless discussion about time.
Yeah. What a waste of time that was.
Great waste of time. And if anybody watched, we hope you enjoy it. And this is pretty much what we're going to be doing with this channel to start out. Just going to sit here and just talk about things that we're completely unqualified to talk about. And hopefully people want to give us a like or a thumbs down if that's your thing.
Oh, smash that subscribe button.
Like actually,
smash it.
Just punch your screen right in the face.
Any comments of stuff you want to talk about with us?
Did we miss anything? Did we get anything wrong? Let us know.
Let us know in the comments below.
You can let's do some plugs here before we finish up. You can follow me on Twitter at MTJ Disorder. We're also on Facebook as the channel TRS Media, which will be facebook.com/Team Red Shirt Media. I'm pretty sure we got it scrolling down on the bottom here somewhere as well. Do you want to give yourself any plugs?
If you want to follow me, just don't get too close with COVID. Stay 6 feet apart from me, and you can follow me all you want. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cue music.